Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look at John Lehmann and the Penguin New Writing, that wartime Penguin periodical. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. John Lehmann was born in 1907 and was an English poet and man of letters. He founded the periodicals New Writing and the London Magazine and the publishing house of John Lehmann Limited. After a period as a journalist in Vienna, he returned to England to found the popular periodical New Writing from 1936 to 1940, originally published in hardback book format. This literary magazine sought to break down social barriers and published works by working class authors as well as educated middle class writers and poets. It proved a great influence on literature of the period and an outlet for writers such as Christopher Isherwood and W.H. Auden. With the onset of the Second World War and paper rationing, New Writing's future was uncertain, and so Lehmann wrote New Writing in Europe for Pelican Books, one of the first critical summaries of the writers of the 1930s, in which he championed the authors who had been the stars of New Writing, Auden and Spender, and also his close friend Tom Whittingham, and Whittingham's ally, the emerging George Orwell. So here is that very first book, and it was a Pelican, first of all, published as A81, and it says written specifically for this series, and edited by Lehmann here, and this sort of set the tone for what was to come, really. So having a look here, 1940. So already you can see by the design of this book that wartime paper rationing was already beginning to bite, and Lehmann just couldn't continue to publish his new writings in hardback anymore. So he turned to Alan Lane, who had a massive paper allowance because pre-war Penguin were doing so very well in the UK. So they got a bigger paper allowance during the war, and Lane was able to wholeheartedly embrace the New Writing series and got this one out for Lehmann. As you can see, considering the time, it's fantastic, really, with the photograver in photo insert, as they call it. And here we are. Look, the first volume of the Penguin New Writing is now ready, containing stories by, and George Orwell is there right at the top. So they knew it was on its way. This was just like the little precursor. So if you are collecting the New Writing, as well as Lehmann's original hardback volumes, in Penguin at least, you do want to be picking this one up, the New Writing in Europe. And here is that very first one there, and they were Shooting an Elephant, that brilliant Orwell non-fiction essay, really, is the top of the list there. Absolutely fantastic. And if you've never read Shooting an Elephant, I did actually read that one, almost like a mini audiobook, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below. As is typical of the time, some of the New Writings have got period adverts on the back, some of them haven't, some of them are plain backs. As you can see, very, very delicate paper. Now this first one here was released as part of the main Penguin series, so although my copy is missing a tiny little bit of the bottom of the spine, I'm hoping you can see there that it's numbered number 305, and that's Penguin main series number 305, as well as being the Penguin New Writing volume 1. And there is a picture of Lehmann in his prime. There's the editor. And there's a little list of the first few authors. Brilliant stuff. Now, it was a few months later, but by the time this one had been published, volume 2 was already on the way. But as you can imagine, Britain was being bombed. So the publication of a lot of these early ones was really sort of hit or miss, really. But basically they did volume 2, and it was an exact copy, and this one is also numbered number 305. So if you're collecting the first 1,000 penguins, for example, there's 2 copies of number 305 that you need to get, which are both different books. And this is like the follow-up volume, basically. This one's got one by Rosamond Lehmann, that was his sister, and C.D. Lewis there. And it wasn't just fiction, there was some non-fiction, there was poetry. Obviously a lot of it is wartime related as well, because of the time that it was being published. And I don't think any of the volumes of the Penguin New Writing are particularly difficult to find. This was January 1941. But the first printings of these, and that one actually had 3 printings, but the first printings of these first 2 were 40,000 copies a pop. So not massive, but I don't think they're particularly difficult to pick up. And in actual fact, you often see big runs and sometimes sets of New Writing for sale, and it works out about £1 a piece. So it really is quite a cheap little series to pick up. But as you can imagine, as war progressed, paper became in even more short supply, and the monthly sort of plan to release one of these once a month really was a bit hit or miss. Even if they were prepared to be printed, sometimes a printer would get hit and it would put things back again. But they were initially trying to release at least one of these every month. Here's number 3 then, and as you'll notice as we go through, the colours do vary, and it sort of keeps it quite interesting. Once again, there's one by Rosamond Lehmann, another one by C.D. Lewis and Stephen Spender, all friends of Lehmann personally. W.H. Auden there. This one's got a plain back. Chances are there probably is one with an advertisement on the back. And there was not a lot to these, they were quite thin. They were just 100 pages or so. This one's then February 41. Good stuff. So here's number 4 here. And the series really did get off to a great start, and it was immensely popular, both with readers who'd been starved of new literature to read, period literature, but also by writers looking to contribute. So Lehmann himself mentions in his autobiography that he was just flooded with submitted manuscripts, and he had to sort of respectfully decline, as it were. He got so much stuff and just published the very best of it. Here's another little look at the contents for number 4 here. Another one by Rosamond Lehmann. You could say there was, and Stephen Spender, there was a little bit of favoritism possibly going on there. But if you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books there, or 6 articles there that have got asterisks next to them, and they say specifically written for this issue of the Penguin New Writing. Now, whilst he was publishing these, he did join up with Leonard and Virginia Woolf as managing director of the Hogarth Press between 1938 and 1946. And of course, later on, he did then establish his own publishing company, John Lehmann Limited, and that was with his sister, Rosamond Lehmann. Now, here's volume 5. This one's got the ad on the back for pears, and Uthemol toothpaste on the inside front cover. I really like all the different colours. They're fantastic. Another one by C.D. Lewis there. Another one by Rosamond Lehmann. Pritchett. Auden. Brilliant stuff. Now, at the Hogarth Press, they did publish new works by authors such as Sartre, Kazanakis, Stendhal, and discovered talents like Thomas Gum and Laura Lee. They also published the first 2 books by the cookery writer Elizabeth David, a book of Mediterranean food and French country cooking. So there you go. Here we are, number 6 here. I always find the red and the black quite a bit difficult, quite a bit harder to read, I should say. It doesn't really jump out with clarity like some of the other ones. You see a few familiar names there, C.D. Lewis and Stephen Spender again. These are his friends, Dylan Thomas, John Lehmann himself there, 7 Poems of Vienna. And a second one there by Spender. So all these sort of wartime ones here, they're all very similar format. They're all very thin volumes. And at the very peak of the Blitz, the copies tend to be even more fragile than these ones. And we'll get to those in a moment. But yeah, volume 7 here, the list for volume 7. And of course, by this time, Penguin were also publishing Penguin Parade, which was another sort of anthology title. We'll look at those in due course on the channel. There's number 8 here, Penguin number 8. Number 9. line. It's got a Graham Greene there. Nice early Graham Greene. It's a really, really colourful series, these. Now this is the point where they start getting even more fragile because they've been printed virtually at the height of the Blitz in Britain, and the publishers were really getting a pace. And so, yeah, this is November 41, so they've sort of kept up a monthly publishing schedule, which was always the idea. Here's another one by Laura Lee there. Laura Lee, a poem. And Auden again as well, and C. Day Lewis. So yeah, these next few, I think, are the hard ones to find within the run of new writing. Number 11 here, another quite fragile one. Sometimes you do see these in better condition. There's a Dylan Thomas there, but I've never really sort of actively looked to upgrade mine. These are just the ones that have come my way, but certainly I think either that one, number 11, or this, or number 12 are possibly the two toughest ones to get in the entire run. Number 12 here, another one by Lehmann's sister. And Stephen Spender, W.H. Auden, and Tom Whittingham. They seem to be like the anchor authors on this title, don't they? "13 here. Report on today. Laura Lee, Isherwood, Roy Fuller, Lehmann himself again, and then some book reviews and some drawings. Just a little bit more advanced, this one, considering the time. It was like almost like we're over the very worst of it now. We can afford to be a little bit more lavish. But when was this published? Still July 42. So bang in the middle of the war, and they publish something like that. It's really quite something, isn't it? And 14 here. More familiar names. A little photo insert again. Once again, a lot of war-related stuff, since we were bang in the middle of war. But things start to improve now. They're through the worst of the Blitz, and paper quality starts to improve ever so slightly. Let's move those over there. Here's number 15 now. Quite a nice one, sort of the bright red here. Some theatre reviews here as well now, as well as poetry and book reviews. Photo insert again. Fantastic, really, when you consider when these were actually being published. "16, Laura Lee leads off there. John Hiller, John Paul Sartre, Roy Fuller again, Urquhart. And certainly when you dip in and out of the new writing, you realise just how much good stuff there actually was inside there. Here's number 17 in the series. Lots of familiar names again. And I sort of think all the different colours remind me of the Penguin Forces Book Club, with their different jackets, one for each month, you know. And I guess it was to give it its own identity. Number 19. Once again, much harder to read on the black on the blue cover here. And this is basically the format right up until the end of the war. It remained like this. And it was going great guns, basically. So this is this one here. This is 1944 now. Number 19. Number 20. I'm sure you recognise some of these. If this is the sort of stuff that you read now and again, you certainly recognise the names, and some of their more famous articles are included here. 20. Osbert Sitwell, I see. First time I think we've seen him. A poetry supplement. Ian Forster. Number 22. This is first entry by J. Morpurgo. He would go on to be quite an important part of the Penguin story. Went on to write the first biography of, or the first proper biography of Alan Lane, entitled King Penguin. We are very much near the end of the war now. Number 22 here, 1944, just coming out of wartime. 23. Edith Sitwell, Roy Lee, Pritchett. Certainly they relied on a steady stream of certain authors, didn't they? That one even had colour in, so you can tell things are getting back to normal. Yeah, that was the first one for 1945. Number 24 here now. A few different names creeping into the mix. Little advert for King Penguins on the back there. And the books feel a little bit more robust now in the hand, which I guess is because we've come out of the period of extreme paper rationing. 25 here. William Samson. George Baker. And this is perhaps the biggest one. This is almost 200 pages, this one. So they've definitely upped their game slightly. Recent Penguins there. A few good ones in that list. And then number 26, which is the last one in this format. Now, I always wondered on this one because it's got Alec Guinness, Money for Jam. Now, I wonder, is this Alec Guinness the actor, I wonder? So look, about the new contributors. Down the bottom here, Alec Guinness was born in London in 1914. He went on the stage in 1933, working with John Gielgud and Tyrone Guthrie at the Old Vic. He joined the RNVR in February 41. He started the New York production of Flare Path, Money for Jam. It is the first story he has had published, and it is founded on his personal experience. I'm pretty sure that is the Alec Guinness of Star Wars fame. And that's from 1945, so I'm certain that's the same actor. Now, that's the last one in sort of traditional A format, number 26, because after that, it goes a bit larger to this now. It says spring 1946, but inside it's got Penguin New Writing 27, and it just has this slightly different look. So if you compare the two, it's not B format, but it is ever so slightly wider. It's more like a pulp and a fraction taller. It's a little weird because, you know, as paperback collectors, we're used to the classic sort of A format. But this is what Penguin decided to do, and this is how the series ran right the way up to number 40. I mean, it did come out quarterly, which was always the original intention. But after the war, things, you know, the demand for, you know, people just reading literally anything had dried up. So people were being a little bit more picky, and I think they were being drawn away from perhaps, you know, literature magazines such as this. So there's the little list inside. But certainly, unfortunately, sales dried up. So they started to decline, and they just never really recovered. And that's why it was knocked on the head at number 40. So we'll show the ones up to number 40. I'll show you all the contents just in case there was a particular one you were looking for. It's July 46. And while I show you these last ones, I will recount what Lehmann did after the last one got published, number 40. So in 1954, Lehmann went on and found the London Magazine, and he remained as editor until 1961, following which he was a frequent lecturer, and he also completed a 3-volume autobiography. They were called The Whispering Gallery in 1955, I Am My Brother in 1960, and The Ample Proposition in 1966. In the Purely Pagan Sense, which was published in 1976, that's an autobiographical record of his homosexual life in England and pre-war Germany, and it's discreetly written in the form of a novel. He also wrote the biographies of Edith Sitwell in 1952, Virginia Woolf and Her World in 1975, Thrown to the Wolves, as in Virginia Woolf's, in 1978, and one on Rupert Brooke in 1980. And then finally, Christopher Isherwood, a personal memoir, in 1987. Quite interesting. Numbering's back on the spine now, so that was 31. Here we are, 32, so it was just temporarily dropped, but not for long. It's an advert for the second series of Penguin Parade there on the back. Little list there of the contents. Spot a Lawrence Durrell, another author I really like. Number 33. I think it's a real shame they couldn't have got more George Orwell in some of the earlier volumes, but I suppose Penguin got him in the end, didn't they? 34. And at this point, I think Penguin had already published Down and Out in Paris and London. .35. Once again, similar sort of little vignette on the front cover with the number. And very colourful they do make as a set, don't they? As I said, really easy to get these together. Absolutely. I almost would be tempted to say don't pay more than about £1.50, because they just turn up. They're very easy, and the easiest way of course is to buy them as a set, but it's more fun to collect them when you're out and about, put a set together. Apart from those few odd wartime ones which are scarce, which I pointed out, the rest of them are really easy to get hold of. .38 here. This one's slightly thinner now, and maybe they've reined it in a little bit because the printing, the sales had dipped a bit, so they're printing just a little less than they were. There we are. .39 there. Change of format again, bringing back a bit of a hark back to the earlier ones where they've got the contents on the front cover there, rather than tempting people to look inside. A list of the Penguin modern painters on the back, the sort of thing that this reader might appeal to. And the very last one before it was brought to a close was number 40. This one's got a glossy cover, whereas these are a sort of matte. This is like a glossy one. And maybe because it was the last one, I'm not 100% sure. And there we are in the forward there. It says the present number, the 40th, will be the last Penguin new writing to be published. Born in the second winter of the war, though its parent, the book magazine New Writing, afterwards New Writing in Daylight, was born nearly 5 years earlier, it has appeared at intervals varying between 7 and 3 times a year for a whole decade. And he's just referring to the infrequency during the war of publishing some of these. That was the last one then of the regular series, number 40. Now, there are a couple other bits to look at, which I do have here. So, in the 60s, the actual name New Writing was revived by Penguin, but John Lehmann had nothing to do with it. So I've got a couple more books in my main series collection here, 2519, which is the New Writing in the USA. And it is American new writers. It's got some interesting names in there. Kurak, you see on the back. Ferengeti. These are sort of the hot names of the time, weren't they? But yeah, there was no sign of John Lehmann anywhere. He was off doing other things at this point. There's William Burroughs, some of the beat authors, Ginsberg, Ferengeti, Jack Kurak. So you've got a few key names here, and they've just basically called it the New Writing in the USA. And they did another one, which I've got Polish writing today. Once again, nothing to do with John Lehmann. It's just in a similar sort of vein to the American one. It's Polish writers. But, so I thought I'd include those. There was one other John Lehmann contribution to New Writing, and that was this one. It's the Penguin New Writing, 1940 to 1950. So 50. Now this was published during Penguin's 50th anniversary in 1985, and Lehmann and Roy Fuller, who was also part of the New Writing, they've gone through and they've selected the very best of those original 40 volumes and reprinted them here. And there's a brand new introduction by John Lehmann, which was this was published 2 years before he died, so it's probably one of the last things he ever got written. And it's really, really good. It's really interesting about how the magazine came to be, and the circumstances amongst which it was written. It's very, very good. And this one's really easy to track down. A cursory look on eBay found copies for about £3 to £4. So I don't think you'll have any trouble finding one. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed looking through my collection of vintage Penguin new writings. Certainly a great little series to collect, and not too many to actually pull together if you are looking to create a run of them. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage Penguin book content. And I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.